The Russian invasion of Ukraine has been going on for nearly 2 months. In that time period, we've seen the Russian army pour into the north, south and east of Ukraine, only to withdraw from the north around Kiev and halt their offensive in the south towards Odessa. And more recently, Ukrainians sunk the Moskva, the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. We also see Ukrainians counterattacking around Kharkiv in the north and Kherson in the south, while Russia is gearing up for its decisive offensive in the east. Naturally, the question arises: who's winning? To answer this, we're going to be looking at economic and military factors on both sides influencing the outcome, so we can get a better idea of the situation. Of course, when following war-related events, we have to exercise proper mental hygiene to keep ourselves afloat. Fabulous is an app that can help you do that. The sponsor of today's video, Fabulous is your digital coach, a happiness trainer if you will. It's the #1 self-care app to help you build better habits and achieve your goals. Fabulous really helped me maintain my mental health as I keep track of current events, and helps ward off the anxiety I get from looking at examples of American urban planning. Based on behavioral science, it helps you develop great, healthy habits and routines for a healthier, more productive and fulfilling lifestyle. The app will help you create your own rituals, these small steps that lead to big changes. The two ways to use the app are habit tracking and dedicated programs. In habit tracking, you can choose from 100+ recommended habits, or you can create your own. Fabulous then helps you build these habits with gentle reminders and content based on behavioral science. Dedicated programs will help you achieve your well-being goals over the course of several weeks. The new habits you pick up can be added to your daily routine if you so choose. And god, the illustrations are nice. It's one of my favorite things about the app, besides the fact that its methods actually work. With the premium version, you can build and improve an unlimited number of habits in your routines, and you have access to all programs and exercises. Start building your daily routine. The first 500 people to click the link below will get 25% off their Fabulous subscription. Thank you for checking out Fabulous. Ads like this help support what I do. And now, back to the program. So who's winning in the Russian invasion of Ukraine? There are two relevant factors to consider here: economics and military. First, let's look at economics. The Ukrainian economy has been decimated by the war since it's a war. Consequently, Ukraine's GDP will basically be cut in half this year. However, as counterintuitive this might sound, it's not that big of a problem. The Ukrainian population can be sustained even at half GDP, and beyond that you basically only need money for the war effort. And for that, Ukraine basically has a blank check from the West. They will not let Ukraine run out of money under any circumstances. In this war, Ukraine's funds are, for all intents and purposes, infinite. At no point do they have to worry about how they're going to pay for the war. Of course, this doesn't mean that they can just spend trillions each day, but they will have a steady amount to keep them afloat coming in each month. A far more important question here is how Russia is faring on the economics front. At face value, their economy isn't really fazed by the sanctions. The ruble seems to be afloat, having stabilized around an almost pre-invasion level. So that looks good. Too bad it's complete bullshit. So what's going on here? Of a given currency, if there is more selling than buying, the currency weakens. If there is more buying than selling, it strengthens. So more people seem to be buying rubles than selling. A testament to the faith in Russia's financial institutions, right? Not really. You see, Russia has limited selling and forced buying, thus creating an artificial demand which keeps the ruble afloat for the time being. The Wall Street Journal calls it a central bank-induced coma. Russia is also burning its precious foreign currency reserves to buy ruble, all for the sake of temporary stability. With the war expenditures, the currency stabilizing, and Western asset freezes, the Russian reserves are in decline even as they keep selling their oil and gas. As for the stock market, Russia has adopted the strategy of there can be no stock market crash if there is no stock market. But behind the scenes, things are not looking great nonetheless.
Со мной в студии сегодня Александр Бутманов, экономист, основатель инвестиционного клуба «Союзники», эксперт по биржевым стратегиям. Александр, здравствуйте.
Приветствую, добрый день, не говорю.
Да, никто уже сейчас не говорит. Биржевые стратегии сегодня это вообще атовизм или вы еще надеетесь в профессии остаться?
В крайнем случае я буду работать Дедом Морозом, как 25 лет назад.
Ну, это раз в год только. Ну,
да. Кроме шуток, давайте быстренько я это сделаю. Я передаю привет Сергею Усиченко, который пел 12 лет назад, 13, за смерть фондового рынка. Сегодня я пью газировку. Дорогой фондовый рынок, ты был нам близок, был интересен. Покойся с миром, дорогой товарищ.
Я не буду комментировать этот флешмоб, не хочу, потому что я в это верить.
However, after a month-long closure, the Russian stock market reopened in late March and the market didn't actually crash. So what happened? Is the Russian economy so resilient after all? According to this New York Times article, when the market opened, only 33 stocks out of several hundred were allowed to trade under heavy restrictions. Foreign investors couldn't sell their holdings as there was a blanket ban on short selling, which stopped traders from betting on falling prices. The government had pledged to spend up to $10 billion buying shares. Trading was open for about 4 hours each day. Right, so as we can see, it's once again complete bullshit. But for now, Russia's foreign currency reserves will carry the country as things get progressively worse nonetheless. Western companies are moving out, Russians are set to lose their jobs by the hundreds of thousands nationwide, inflation is at a staggering 16.7%, and a major recession is already underway. All this means is, from the invasion's perspective, short-term, the Russian economy will be fine-ish, mid-term they will survive, long-term however, to use a technical term, Russia is fucked. But this doesn't mean they can't win the war. Economics in this case cannot give us a definite answer to the question of who's winning, but it creates a significant time pressure which heavily influences the second factor, military. Let's start here with a simple question. How can you tell if someone is winning a war or not? It's not as simple as who wins the most battles. As a popular, well-known example, in the Song of Ice and Fire, Robb Stark won every battle during his campaign, but was still set to lose the war, and then he got married. The reason why Robb Stark lost the war, despite being successful on the battlefield, is because his goals were unattainable given the circumstances, while Tywin Lannister's goals were far more reasonable. But back to the real world, what are the goals of Ukraine and Russia? For Ukraine, the fundamental goal is to ensure the survival of the country in its current form of government, to avoid being annexed by Russia or being turned into a puppet state. This involves holding Kiev and all other major population centers. Then their secondary goal is to restore the borders before the 24th of February 2022. Their tertiary goal is to fully take back the Donbass and Crimea. Russia's goals on the other hand have been far harder to pin down, since they've been shifting constantly. Officially, that is. The latest official goal of the Russian offensive is to eliminate the nationalist/far-right battalions in Ukraine, somewhat of a step down from the original promise, namely how they will purge the drug-addicted neo-Nazis who took over Ukraine and destroy the US-funded biolabs that produce anthrax-infected bats to be flown into Russia and bioweapons that target Russian genes. I am not making this up, by the way, these were all official Russian propaganda talking points. But beyond the propaganda, Russia's goal was the establishing of a pro-Russian puppet state in Ukraine. This involves taking Kiev, Kharkiv, Odessa, Dnipro, and other major cities together with the surrounding territory. So right off the bat, we can see that Ukraine's first goal was achieved, thus Russia's goal failed. Russia lost the battle for Kiev, and even though Russian propaganda insists that Kiev was just a clever trick to draw Ukrainians away from the east or something, yeah right, go harder. Actually, it's even more embarrassing if the Battle of Kiev really was a fake out. Russia's best troops got defeated and humiliated, thousands died or got injured, hundreds of vehicles lost, all in battle against a defense force that mostly would have stayed around Kiev no matter what. But military goals can and will shift over time. Following the defeat at Kiev, Russia had to revise its goal to just taking the south and the east, to cut off Ukraine from the sea, to annex the Donbass fully, and to create a land bridge between Russia and Crimea. But at this point, their goal number 2 has also failed. Though they took most of the south, they couldn't take the strategically important part, namely Odessa and Mykolaiv. What's more, Kherson is now assessed to be contested, and will likely be retaken by Ukrainians pushing all the way to the river. The best the Russians can do there is to try and hold their gains. But if and when Ukrainians take Kherson and start pushing towards Crimea, the land bridge will no longer be sustainable. It's a flat, rather dry terrain with not much room for defense, where attacking armies can just sweep through. So Russia had to once again revise its goals. They had to drop cutting off Ukraine's sea access and shift focus from the south to the east to try and take the Donbass. At this point, the land bridge to Crimea is in the maybe category, fully dependent on Russia's success in the Donbass. And there are two scenarios for the Donbass offensive. The first is a major pincer maneuver where two forces start out from Kharkiv and south of Zaporozhye and link up around Dnipro, taking at least the latter two cities and cutting off Ukraine's best troops in the Donbass, thus eventually forcing a ceasefire and some form of a surrender. However, not even this is plausible at this point. As a reminder, in the south, Mariupol is still not fully taken as of the making of this video, and every day the Russians spend bogged down there, the less capacity they'll have for further offensives. Also, Mariupol is a 450,000 city, Kharkiv is 1.4 million, Dnipro is 1 million, while Zaporozhye is 750,000. And they cannot even be cut off from supply lines like Mariupol was very early on. In light of the Russian army's performance so far in urban combat, I just don't see a way for them to take any major cities beyond Mariupol. And if Russians don't take a city, just pass it by, Ukrainians will use that city as a fortress to conduct raids out of, disrupting supply lines and harassing passing troops. So the ambitious encircling plan is, as far as I can see, dead on arrival. The Russians' last possible goal is a smaller, more conservative encirclement of Ukrainian troops. Importantly, this plan doesn't involve taking any major cities, just advancing north and south simultaneously from Mariupol and Izium, performing a smaller encirclement of Ukrainian troops in the area. If Russia succeeds in this, then Ukraine will have failed its secondary goal, the restoration of pre-invasion borders, and Russia will have achieved at least some victory. But some might worry that at that point Russia will just dig in for a couple of weeks, gather some strength, and resume the offensive against an exhausted Ukrainian defense force. Except they won't be able to. This is where economics really hit Russia in the face. Time is on the Ukrainian side. Due to sanctions and disrupted supply chains, Russia cannot get modern weapons from anywhere and cannot produce them in the needed quality quality and quantity. They also have to keep financing the war effort somehow. Russians have less and less money and hardware as time goes on, while Ukrainians keep getting more hardware and don't have to worry about finances. So as things stand now, I see two possible outcomes. 1. Russia succeeds with the small encirclement and declares mission accomplished. 2. Ukraine halts the small encirclement, then progressively pushes back the Russian army, plagued by obsolete equipment, lack of trained personnel and low morale. With time, the previously described economic issues will also become more pressing, accelerating the Russian defeat. In that case, Ukraine can proceed trying to accomplish their more ambitious goals. So in summary, right now we're in a situation where Ukraine can only win having already secured its main fundamental goal, and where Russia can either win small or lose completely. This would be my current assessment of the situation based on the facts currently available. And I haven't considered things here such as Russian tactical nuke use or chemical weapons. It's a possibility, but that's a topic for another video. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I also have a Patreon if you think this content is worth your money, and I'll be seeing you next time.